Hello, physical geographers. We just finished hydrosphere, did well with that, and we're moving into cycles and patterns in the biosphere. So we're going to talk about different bio processes, plants, animals, life, and so forth. So really, this is the geographic approach to the study of organisms. We're going to talk about biogeochemical cycles, food chains, biological factors, environmental correlations, biogeography, study of distribution patterns of living organisms, and how patterns change over time, biodiversity, number of different kinds of organisms, and total complexity of plant and animal life. So flora, our plants, and fauna, or animals, is really key to understanding what we're going to discuss in this chapter. Also, it's key to understand the classification systems: binomial system, two-name system, which first term is genus, a group closely related organisms, second is species. So we're almost getting into biology as far as the whole classification schemes of that. Habitats and niches. Biogeographers describe relationships between organisms and locations surrounding environments. A habitat, kind of environment, niche, a species specific role or function in the habitat. Any given habitat is likely to contain species. So that's the relationship. Then we have classification schemes, ecosystems used to describe all organisms in an area, and biomes, large and recognizable assemblages of plants and animals living in a functional relationship with the environment. So we have an interconnected series of cycles and pathways where energy elements and nutrients flow through the biosphere. This is called biogeochemical cycles. The flow of energy, we have photosynthesis. So essentially what we're taking is carbon dioxide plus water plus light, and we're producing carbohydrates and oxygen, which is plant respiration. So essentially that is the process that kind of offsets the fauna or the manner that's not plants. For instance, you or I or animal life, essentially that requires oxygen and respires carbon dioxide. We have net primary productivity reflected in dry weight or biomass. So here's an example of geochemical cycles where vegetation exists. Chlorophyll basically used for the process we talked about, turning CO2 essentially to oxygen. Then we have the hydrologic cycle, which we covered in the last chapter. Then the carbon cycle. Carbon's basically another basic element for life. If it has carbon, it typically has life, which is the basis of organic matter. Then the nitrogen cycle, usable for plant life. So nitrogen's one of the key nutrients plants usually need in addition to potassium and phosphorus. We have the oxygen cycle, movement of oxygen by various processes through the environment, some bound up in CO2 and some's actually oxygen. And food chain, basically an order of animal and plants where they consume one another, as shown by this pyramid: primary consumers and second consumers. And a food pyramid showing that essentially organized, occupy the same trophic level, usually eat the same kind of food. And politics in the food chain can have a rippling effect. Endemic species, a variety of plant or animals found in one location or another. So essentially it's a species within a location consuming the same type of food or matter that's in that area. Migration and dispersal is the general movement of that. Reproductive success has a lot to do with population surviving. So we have population die-off and extinction. In plant succession, one type of vegetation is replaced with another. Once again, that's almost like survival of the fittest. Each succeeding plant associates alters the natural environment, so it affects it long term. Survival of plants depends on varying degrees of environmental factors. Some plants do well with certain types of soil, amount of precipitation, moisture, so forth, and sunlight would also fit into that. Okay, we have moisture and temperature that applies to that. Wind, edaphic factors, direct influence on plants, rooting capability, topographic influences. For instance, what slope are you at, what elevation, what so forth. Then we have environmental factors like wildfire, talked about wind, intertwining relationships in the environment, tropical forest or selva, plant associated with many different species, so what plant will grow among other plant species, and so forth. Example, tropical drainage forest, hydrography, abundance of runoff for dense networks. There's a lot of water that's run off in this environment, and it tends to be very dense network. Not all vegetation would survive it. So I hope you enjoyed this chapter. It's pretty interesting. It feeds well off of what we talked about as far as natural environments, the climate, hydrography, the hydrosphere, and so forth. So we have one chapter left, and then we will be finishing up the class. I hope you're enjoying it, and we will see you soon.